It's 30 years after people. And despite damaged storm drains and sea walls, Seattle is high and dry compared to New Orleans.
It'll be flooded. New Orleans in 30 years will have fish and snakes and tops of houses sticking out and vines growing all over, and it'll be kind of like a jungle grown around the remnants of structures.
But this is not the result of failed levees. They still stand. New Orleans' Achilles heel was its 150 drainage pumps. Without humans to run the pumps, and with little natural evaporation, the lower parts of the city filled with rain. Although Seattle has a reputation for rainfall, New Orleans actually averages almost twice as much, about 5 feet a year. The levees that were built to keep water out now hold the flood in, creating new kinds of aquariums for the city.
The marble floors of some of the hotels here would be unrecognizable because they would be under layers and layers of sediment. They would be inhabited by things like clams, crabs, tube worms, and would eventually give way to be nurseries for some of the larger fish. "50 years after people. From 200 to 22,000 miles above the Earth's oceans, there is carnage. In the time of humans, almost 3,000 active satellites monitored the stars, the weather, and life below. In February 2009, a defunct Russian satellite crashed into a US satellite in a 600-piece pileup. Without humans to control the crowded spaceways, accidents have multiplied. Fragments strike at 15,000 miles an hour. The collisions send shards smashing into other satellites, sending some down in flames, to be extinguished in the sea. In Seattle, the 605-foot-tall Space Needle, built as a symbol of the 1962 World's Fair, once lured visitors with its spectacular views. Now, the windows have all blown out, destroyed by corrosion from Seattle's rain.
Our glass is expected to last 20, 25 years. But if you didn't have the proper maintenance, as corrosion gets in there, that's going to pinch on the glass and eventually cause cracks. Those cracks will become failures, and that'll be the thing that kind of opens up.
In the time of humans, it took 24 people and $2 million a year to maintain the Needle's structure and safety. While the tall structure was an occasional target for lightning, the Space Needle will not perish by fire. After 50 years, the exterior paint has flaked away and the steel faces corrosion, some of it from an unexpected source. Water stored in the trees that have reclaimed the city.
The trees will dump leaves and pine needles on the ground, and some of this will fall on the base. If the leaves fell in this area, a stack of leaves here, those leaves would capture moisture, and they would hold the moisture, and they would hold it for weeks and months at times. And not only that, they're somewhat acidic, and rain is somewhat acidic, so the whole process could really accelerate corrosion.
Although the Space Needle will stand for many decades to come, the corrosive power of water will one day bring it down. While the Needle stands, its former high-altitude restaurant is a roosting place for peregrine falcons, the fastest creatures on Earth, swooping down on their prey at more than 270 miles an hour.
Peregrines naturally nest on cliffs, so putting a nest on a little ledge outside a window really is similar to nesting on a little ledge on a cliff. So if there's pigeons living below a nest, that's a good home.
Other birds have changed more than just their habitats.
In cities around the world, songbirds have changed their tunes and their frequencies. In humans, researchers were amazed that recordings of songbird mating calls from the 1970s sounded different from the same kinds of birds in the same areas 30 years later. The reason? Quiet country had become noisy city, and so birds adapted.
If you think about that background din of humanity as being a low frequency noise, we see birds shifting and singing, raising the pitch, raising the frequency of their songs to sing, to get their message across above this background noise.
Now, the cities have been silent for several generations of birds, and the mating calls have returned to their lower frequencies. In Dubai, the Burj Al Arab can no longer hold out against nature's attacks. The metal skin of the building has fallen away, and the corroded, mold-ridden structure falls apart. In the Gulf of Mexico, a century of hurricanes has reduced the nearly 4,000 oil platforms to just one.
Every time there's a hurricane, statistically, we lose about 3 or 4% of the platform fleet.
Over a 20-year period, a 9,000-ton oil platform can sink several feet into the soft seabed of the Gulf of Mexico. So every year makes it more vulnerable to ocean waves, which can top 50 feet.
The last platform would probably be a big rust bucket with a missing deck and barnacles and marine growth.
A final wave pushes the rusty hulk over into the waiting embrace and roar of the deep. The next 2 centuries will see the toppling of a city's symbol, the fall of an icon of earthly and spiritual power, and the final failure of the New Orleans levees, thanks to a creature so dangerous, it was once hunted by the police.